cardiopulmonary resuscitation. What does CPR stands for? C stands for the cardio heart, P pulmonary, that is lungs, and or resuscitation, that is recovery. Definition: cardiopulmonary resuscitation is a technique that is mainly basic life support for the purpose of oxygenation of the heart, lungs, and the brain. So unless, so here sometimes the person may be fainting and collapsing on the road or somewhere where exactly there will not be any medical facility. So here we will be immediately starting the CPR after feeling the carotid pulse in order to oxygenate the heart, lungs, and brain. If in case if there is appropriate medical treatment not available, and can restore the normal cardiopulmonary function. This cardiopulmonary resuscitation is a series of steps used to establish artificial ventilation, circulation in the patient and who is not breathing and has no pulse. Coming to the purposes of CPR. First one, restore cardiopulmonary functioning. Second, prevent irreversible brain damage from anoxia, that is absence of oxygen. Indications for CPR: cardiac arrest, respiratory arrest, and a combination of both, that is both cardiac arrest and respiratory arrest. Definition of cardiac arrest. Cardiac arrest is nothing but as a loss of cardiac function, breathing, and loss of consciousness. Causes of cardiac arrest, that is 6H and 4T: hypoxia, hypotension, hypothermia, hypoglycemia, decreased glucose level, and acidosis. Acidosis mainly, that is even respiratory acidosis or metabolic acidosis. So the patient's pH is less than 7.35 or even POT is less than 80. And hypokalemia. Hypokalemia, the potassium level, if it's less than 3, that is an electrolyte disturbance. And cardiac tamponade. Tamponade is fluid filled in the pericardium. And tension pneumothorax, air in the thorax, and thromboembolism. Thromboembolism is nothing but it's a moving thrombus that will be blocking somewhere, that is in the pulmonary or coronary. And even the drug toxicity, mainly the person was using the drug for a long time, mainly digitalis, that is digoxin or local anesthetics or any insecticides. Coming to the diagnosis of cardiac arrest. The diagnosis of cardiac arrest, so every second we are wasting, we may be losing the patient. So that is, we should not waste the time by measuring the BP or taking the peripheral pulse or auscultating the cardiac tones. These all the things will lead to loss of time. So to diagnose the cardiac arrest, so first we have to shake the patient in order to assess the level of consciousness. Then we should feel the, we should not assess the apical pulse. We should feel the carotid pulse and we should find out whether there is any signs of apnea. How CPR works. So here the air we breathe, that will be traveled to our lungs, and here the oxygen is picking up by our blood, and then it will be pumped by the heart to our tissue and organs. And here when the person is experiencing a cardiac arrest, where that is due to heart failure or maybe an adult or elderly, or if it caused due to an injury or it's caused by drowning or any trauma, or that it is a normal arrhythmic pattern, or it caused due to any lethal arrhythmias like ventricular fibrillation and eventually or beat altogether. So this prevents oxygen from circulating throughout the body, and rapidly it will be started killing the cells and tissues. In essence, the heart-lung resuscitation, that is here we are reviving, revitalize souls as an artificial heartbeat and an artificial respirator. And the CPR may not save the victim even when performed properly, but if started within 4 minutes of cardiac arrest and defibrillation is provided within 10 minutes, a patient has a 40% chance of survival. So every second we should be alert, we should not leave the patient. Continuous CPR should be given for 100, just 100 to 120 compression, and immediately we should defibrillation. If it's available, we have to defibrillate the patient within 10 minutes. Equipments needed. Equipments needed nothing but a flat surface, a hot flat surface, and no additional equipments is necessary. But in hospital setting, that is in a natural setting, there is no equipment, only the heel of the hand. And in hospital setting, an emergency crash cord will be there with a defibrillator and a multi-purpose cardiac monitor. All the things will be available in the crash cord itself. So we will be pulling the crash cord near to the patient side, and airway equipment, suction equipment, suction apparatus, and IV equipment, and laboratory tubes and syringes of all sizes, and any pre-packed medications which is labeled and timings, anything mentioned, that we can use it. What is basic life support? So the basic life support is a life support without the use of special equipment. Only we are using the hand and we are giving, that is the basic life support without any advanced instrument. What is advanced life support? Advanced life support we called as ACLS. It is life support with the use of special equipment, that is mainly will be done in the hospital, setup maximum and airway, endotracheal tube and defibrillator. The chain of survival: first, early recognition and call for help. That is, this will help to prevent cardiac arrest. Then immediately we should start the CPR to buy the time, and very early we have to give the defibrillation within 10 minutes and to restart the heart, and post resuscitation care, that is to restore quality of life. Early recognition. Early recognition is nothing but it's a crucial importance, and we should shake the patient, check the victim for a response, and shake shoulders gently and ask, are you all right? And next, you're finding no breathing or no normal breathing, that is, you're feeling that the patient is only gasping. And if there is no carotid pulse within 10 seconds, and the CPR, we will start the CPR. Now, initially the CPR, we are following that ABC, airway, breathing and circulation. Now we are giving more importance for circulation. That's what is changed to compression, airway and breathing, that is CAB. Chest compression is, it's a cardiac massage. Here the human brain cannot survive more than 3 minutes. So chest compression must be started immediately. For any patient, if you are finding that the patient is having an absence of carotid pulse, immediately we will start the CPR. Technique of chest compression. So here the patient may be placed on a hard surface. If and all available a wooden board, better we can have a wooden board, and the palm of one hand is placed in a concavity of the lower half of the sternum, 2 fingers above the C5 process. And we should better avoid this C5 sternal junction, which will cause a fracture or injury to the ribs. The other hand is placed over the hand on the sternum, and the shoulder should be positioned directly over the hands with the elbows locked straight and arms extended, and use your upper body weight to compress. And sternum must be depressed at least 5 cm in adults, and 2 to 4 cm in children, and 1 to 2 cm in infants. Then is to push hard and push fast. You can see the diagram how we are placing the hand. And must be performed, as I said earlier, at a rate of 100 to 120 per minute, that is compression. And during CPR, the ratio of chest compression of ventilation should be as follows: single rescuer, if only one rescuer available, 30:2. And if in the presence of 2 rescuers, chest compression must not be interrupted for ventilation. And here you can see that chest compression and 1 rescuer, how they are giving the chest compression, 30 chest compression and 2 ventilation given by one rescuer. And chest compression for infants. You can see that two fingers, index and middle finger we are using. And chest compression must be continued for 2 minutes before reassessment of cardiac rhythm. So 2 minutes is equivalent to 5 cycles, that is 30:2. And this is the golden rule here we will be following. Ensure high quality chest compression. That is, we have to make sure whatever the chest compression we are giving, it has a high quality, that it meant that it should have a proper rate, depth and recoil. And plan actions before interrupting CPR and minimize interruption of chest compression and early defibrillation of shockable rhythm. And if you are finding that the patient is having an abdominal rhythm, that is a shockable rhythm, better we can give defibrillation. Assessment of the adequacy of chest compression. So that is systolic BP 60 to 80 mm Hg, diastolic BP above 40 mm of Hg. And COP is 30% of normal. Coming to the problems and complications of chest compression. So even though if you are not properly placing the hand proper, so it may cause certain problems. That is rib fracture, fracture sternum, rib separation, pneumothorax, hemothorax, lung conditions, liver laceration, even the formation of fat emboli, and even if you are not maintaining a sterile technique, maybe a HIV, hepatitis infections. Airways loss of consciousness often results in airway obstruction. So any foreign object that is obstructing the airway, it will be causing a loss of consciousness, that is a loss of tone in the muscles of the airway and falling back of the tongue. So basic technique for airway patency, that is head tilt, chin lift. One hand is placed on the forehead and the other on the chin, and the head is tilted upward to cause anterior displacement of the tongue. Here you can see first diagram, there is a blocked airway, and here the rescuer is applying the head tilt and chin lift method, and he is opening the airway. And jaw thrust method. Here is the jaw thrust method. And the finger sweep, we can sweep out foreign body in the mouth by index finger. In unconscious patient only we can do, and this is not advised in a conscious or conversing patient. In case the patient is unconscious and not able to follow our commands, better we can sweep out foreign body in the mouth by index finger. Heimlich maneuver. So Heimlich maneuver, if the patient is conscious or the foreign body cannot be removed by a finger sweep, and it done while the patient is standing up or lying down in a subdiaphragmatic abdominal thrust that elevates the diaphragm, expelling a blast of air from the lungs that displaces the foreign body. And infants, what we will do by a serious blow on the back and chest thrust. Coming to the breathing. Breathe for the person. Rescue breathing can be mouth to mouth or mouth to nose. And if the patient is having any injury in the nose, we will be following the mouth to mouth, and in case the same manner, if there is an injury or any oral ulcer or anything is in the mouth, we will be following the mouth to nose. And with the airway open, using the head tilt and chin lift maneuver. And here we will be pinch the nostril, shut for mouth to mouth breathing, and cover the person's mouth with the rescuer mouth and make a seal. Here you can see the basic techniques include mouth to mouth breathing. The person rescuer is placing the mouth over the patient's mouth and escape. That with the airway held open, pinch the nostrils closed and take a deep breath and seal the lips over the patient's mouth and blow steadily into the patient's mouth, watching the chest rise as if the patient was taking a deep breath. Then coming to the mouth to nose breathing, seal the mouth shut and breathe steadily through the nose. And mouth to mouth and nose is used in infants and small children. Assessment of restoration of breathing and circulation. So here for restoration of breathing and circulation, First we have to assess the pupil whether it's contracting, and the skin color we have to check, and free the chest expansion. We can keep our hand over the patient chest and we can feel the chest expansion, and the swallowing ability or any struggling movements. And the signs of restored ventilation and circulation include any struggling movements, any improved color, and we can feel the pulse, the carotid pulse, whether the patient is having a strong pulse, or even we can assess the systemic blood pressure. When to terminate BLS? So when we can start the basic life support? First, pulse and respiration return, and if there is emergency medical help arrives, and sometimes the physician, even though if you are continuing the BLS, there will not be any effect for the patient. So if the physician is declaring that the patient is deceased, no need of giving the BLS, then in a non-health setting, another indication to stop BLS would be that the rescuer was exhausted, or only one rescuer is there and physically unable to continue to perform BLS. Coming to the advanced life support. Advanced life support includes circulation by cardiac massage, airway management by equipments, breathing by advanced techniques, defibrillation by manual defibrillator, and final drugs. Chest compression. Advanced technique for airway patency, you can see the face mask, how we have to place the face mask. Oropharyngeal airway, so it will be depend upon the patient's weight or the age of the patient will be differ. The color also it will be indicate, will be having an yellow, green, red, 1, 2, 3 size of the airways are available. This is a nasopharyngeal airway. Laryngeal mask, it's a rubber. The plastic laryngeal mask is available with a puff. Endotracheal tubes. Endotracheal tubes commonly, the non-cuffed endotracheal tubes will be used for children, and the cuffed endotracheal tubes we are using for adults. So this is the endotracheal tube, that is the cuffed one. This endotracheal tube also available various sizes, that is 3.55, 5.5, 6, 7, like this also will be based on the patient's age and the weight, body mass index we will be selecting, and this is the laryngoscope. Combit tube. So combit tube, you can see how they are placing the endotracheal tube with the stillet, and tip of the endotracheal tube we are fixing the ambu bag. So once the endotracheal tube is placed in the trachea, so to secure the tube is in the proper place, so we will be putting adhesive tape, or even we will be inflating the tube with the 5 ml syringe. This cricothyrotomy, that is the surgical airway. So all other measures fail, we will go for cricothyrotomy, that is the surgical airway. Then tracheostomy, this is opening into the trachea, that is exposure of thyroid isthmus, and we are placing the tracheostomy tube. Either it may be a permanent or temporary. Breathing this by ambu bag in the hospital setup. And expired air contains 16% of oxygen, so supplemental 100% of oxygen should be used as soon as possible. And successful breathing when we will achieve by delivering of a tidal volume of 800 to 1200 ml in adults at a rate of 10 to 12 breaths per minute. And advanced technique includes self-inflating resuscitation bag, that is ambu bag, and mechanical ventilation. So here this is the situation, we will be shifting the patient into ICU. And the expired air contains 16% of oxygen, and the ambu bag is a room here 21% oxygen, and ambu bag plus oxygen, that is 10 to 15 liter, it has 45% oxygen, and ambu bag plus oxygen and reservoir bag, it has 85% oxygen. Defibrillation. So the defibrillation is nothing but delivering an electrical energy to the affected heart with a device that is called the defibrillator. Here you can see the defibrillator and the paddles. So the paddles will be kept on the patient's apex and base. In cardiac arrest, the associated heart rhythm can be categorized. So two ways will be categorized, that is shockable rhythms or non-shockable rhythms. So in case that the patient arrhythmia, that is ventricular tachycardia and ventricular fibrillation, are the two shockable rhythms, and in case that asystole or any premature beats, these all the things are non-shockable rhythms. The basic difference in the treatment of these two groups of arrhythmia is the need for defibrillation in the patients. So if you are seeing that the patient is having a ventricular tachycardia or ventricular fibrillation, immediately we should start defibrillation. The defibrillation, here we should know how we have to place the paddles. So one paddle is placed in the right intraclavicular region, while the other is placed in the left fifth, sixth intercostal space, that is the anterior axillary line. So that is to the right of sternum, just below the clavicle, and the second one, that is the left one, that is left anterior axillary line, that is the fifth to sixth intercostal space. And alternatively, anterior-posterior position may be used, and one paddle is placed, we can place in the left infrascapular region, and other one we can place in the left fifth to sixth intercostal space, that is the anterior axillary line. So once the action completely depolarize all myocardial cells, so SA node can re-establish a pacemaker. Here we can volatile electricity discharge high from 150 joules to 360 joules, in case biphasic, and monophasic 360 joules. Drugs used in CPR, adrenaline. Adrenaline is an vasopressor, and this dosage we will give 1 mg, that is 0.01 milligram per kg IV every 4 minutes, that is an alternative cycle while continuing CPR. And it should be immediately given in non-shockable rhythms, that is if it's not ventricular tachycardia or ventricular fibrillation. And in ventricular fibrillation or ventricular tachycardia, it can be given after the third shock. And this should be repeated in alternative cycle, that is every 4 minutes. And once the adrenaline started, always we have to keep adrenaline only. And the next antiarrhythmic drug, that is amiodarone, that is 300 mg IV bolus. One ampule is 150 mg. So here 300 mg IV bolus we will give, that is 5 mg per kg. And it's given in shockable rhythm, that is in ventricular tachycardia or ventricular defibrillation, ventricular fibrillation, that is it should be given after third shock. And if unavailable, that amiodarone is not available, we can give as an alternative lidocaine 100 mg IV can be given slowly. Then vasopressin can be given antidiuretic hormone, it can be given 40 units single dose once. And magnesium sulfate 2 gram IV slowly we can give, it can be given for the patient, those are having ventricular tachycardia or ventricular fibrillation is caused due to hypomagnesemia, we can give the magnesium and torsade D points or digoxin toxicity. These are all the conditions we can give injection magnesium sulfate. Calcium. Calcium 10 ml of 10% calcium chloride can be given IV slowly, and if if the arrhythmia is caused due to hyperkalemia, that is the potassium level, higher potassium or low calcium hypocalcemia, hypermagnesemia, and overdose of calcium channel blocker, do not give calcium solutions like soda bicarbonate or simultaneously by the same route. And IV fluids, so IV fluids we can give if you are finding that the patient is in hypolimic shock. Mainly we will start with a normal saline, 0.9% normal saline or ringer lactate. And better we should avoid dextrose containing solution because it may be de-distribute away from the intravascular space rapidly and cause hyperglycemia, and it may be worsen the neurological outcome and may leads to cardiac arrest. And dextrose is indicated only if there is documented hypoglycemia, otherwise we should never give dextrose. Then coming to the thrombolytic agents, that is for fibrinolytic therapy, that is common thrombolytic agents, streptokinase, urokinase also available, is considered when cardiac arrest is caused by proven or suspected acute pulmonary embolism. And if a fibrinolytic drug is used in these circumstances, we have to start CPR at least 60 to 90 minutes before termination of resuscitation. For example, streptokinase, urokinase or altiplase or teneclipase, this also can be given, and it should be diluted in 100 ml normal saline and we can give. Sodium bicarbonate mainly used for severe metabolic acidosis, that the pH is less than 7.1, and in any life-threatening hyperkalemia and any tricyclic antidepressant overdose. And the dose is of base deficit into 1/3 body weight. Avoid its routine use due to its complication. Here, increases carbon dioxide load, inhibits release of oxygen to tissues, and impairs myocardial contractility, causes hypernatremia, and adrenaline works better in acidic medium. So that is sodium bicarbonate is giving. When it's heating the sodium bicarbonate, what it's do? It is divided into sodium carbonate, carbon dioxide and water. Then atropine. Atropine is a usual route for premature beats or asystole, is not beneficial and CAS become obsolete, and indicated for mainly sinus bradycardia or atrioventricular block causing hemodynamic instability. So normal dose of atropine 0.5 or 0.6 mg can be given, maximum of 3 mg we can give per day. And the contraindications for atropine, here we should not resuscitate when a decision not to resuscitate has been noted in the chart. Because some patients, they may be right in the doctors do not resuscitate. Because if someone referred to as no code and is now discussed with the client on admission and is referred as an advanced directive. Coming to the summary of steps of CPR. First, recognition. Recognition, we have to find out if the patient is unresponsive and no breathing or normal breathing or gasping or no pulse felt within 10 seconds. Second, CPR sequence, chest compression, airway breathing, that is CAB. Compression rate 100 to 120 per minute. And the compression depth at least 2 inches, at least 1/3 anterior posterior diameter, at least 1/3 anterior posterior diameter, about 1.5 inches. And chest wall recoil, allow complete recoil between compressions and compression interruption, and always we have to make sure we should minimize the interruption in chest compression, and we should attempt to limit interruption to less than 10 seconds. And airway hip tilt, chin lift method, and compression to ventilation ratio, that is if it's one rescuer, it's 30:2, and ventilation with advanced airway, one breathe every 6 to 8 seconds, that is 8 to 10 breaths per minute. And if it's asynchronous with the chest compression, about 1 second per breath, that is visible. If you are seeing that the chest expansion, we can give. And defibrillation, minimize interruption in chest compression before and after shock. And always resume CPR beginning with compressions immediately after each shock. And what we will do for post-resuscitation care. So post-resuscitation care, we should maintain airway and breathing and check for circulation and disability, optimizing neurological recovery, and we should sedate the patient. Better we should control of seizure, temperature, because sometimes the patient is having a high temperature also may leads to seizure. So better control of temperature, and that is the same thing, control of hyperpyrexia. And in case the hypothermia, low temperature also, we have to balance it and monitor the blood glucose level. And managing the cardiac arrest team. So here during cardiac arrest, the team leader, always there will be a team leader, and he has to allocate and assign the various roles and tasks of the team members. So assign one person for each of the following role, and one person will be responsible for airway management and ventilation, that is bag and mask and intubation, and one person will be responsible for chest compression, and one person will be responsible for IV drug administration, and one person will be responsible for defibrillation, and one person will be documenting the timing and whatever they are giving, any drugs or anything, whatever it may be, he will be documenting. And the person responsible for the airway may take turns with the person responsible for chest compression in order to minimize fatigue and exhaustion. And it is also the responsibility of the team leader to use 2-minute period of chest compression to plan tasks, give orders, and eliminate and exclude, correct the reversible causes of cardiac arrest. Thank you.